Hello again. Last night we saw the RAF in action, shooting down cruise missiles and drones heading for Israel. The French were doing so too, and so, even more surprisingly, were the Saudis and the Jordanians. How odd, you might think. Why are all these countries so keen to look after Israel's interests? I can think of a few possible explanations. Perhaps the Saudis and Jordanians have suddenly become Zionists. This seems unlikely. Wait a moment. What about the influence of the Jewish lobby in the West? Perhaps all those bankers like the Rothschilds have put the bite on Britain and forced our country to protect the Jewish state. I rather think that some of those who comment on this channel, the ones who talk about the Austrian painter, for example, think that this is what was happening, but it wasn't. The truth is, all those countries and others who were at work on the sidelines, offering to hold Israel's coat while it got stuck into its military actions, are scared. They are scared of what Israel might do if any more of its people are killed. They are scared, in fact, of the Masada complex. I don't suppose that many people watching this will have heard of the Masada complex, but it's still a powerful underlying force in Israeli identity. Masada is a huge rocky mountain by the Dead Sea. It's got a flat peak with a load of buildings on. Herod had a palace there at one time. 1,000 Jews who had rebelled against Rome held out there for 3 years until the Romans besieging the fortress managed to break in. They found that all the people there had killed themselves. The men had killed their wives and children, then each other, and the last few had killed themselves. Anything rather than surrender to the enemy. 2 women hid and survived, which is how we know what went on there. In the 1920s, Masada became a symbol for resistance and determination never to surrender amongst Zionists. A poem was written about it which contained the line Shenit Masada lo tipol. Masada shall not fall again. This became, after the 1967 war, something of a battle cry or slogan. For example, those joining the Armoured Corps would take their oaths at Masada by torchlight, and they would repeat Shenit Masada lo tipol. From this came the idea that Israel had a psychological complex about the subject and a fanatical will never to surrender or let Masada fall again to an enemy. Masada became a metaphor for the state of Israel. All of which simply means that Israel will do anything, literally anything at all, to defend their country and prevent it falling. That is why they developed nuclear weapons after the 1967 war, and why the first one to be produced had engraved upon it "Never Again," a reference to the Holocaust. It is why Israel now has hundreds of nuclear weapons of all kinds, and also they have their own satellites. This is all well and good, but you see, Israel will just as readily attack their friends as they will their enemies if they think it necessary. I dare say that some viewers will know about the USS Liberty, which was an American spy ship in the Mediterranean during the Six-Day War in 1967. Israel didn't want it there, and so they simply attacked it. Even though they could see that it was American, it didn't matter. All that mattered was Israel and its survival. Now, this makes everybody very, very nervous about what Israel might do if it felt that it was in danger. What might they do with those nuclear weapons, for instance? The answer is they would do whatever they liked with them, anything at all which would further the survival of the Jewish people. If they thought it was needed, they'd fire a missile at Cairo or Tehran or Moscow. They would also, if there was a way that it would help them, use a nuclear weapon against London or Washington. You see, there's a plan called the Samson option, a reference to Samson pulling down the pillars of the temple at Gaza, of course, and killing himself and all his Philistine enemies at the same time. If Israel was in danger of falling, it would take a large part of the world with it as it went down. This is no secret, although nobody really knows the details of the Samson option, except that Israel would assure itself that if it ceased to exist, an awful lot of the world would cease to exist simultaneously. It's no secret, and it's in Britain's best interest, and Saudi Arabia's, and France's too, that Israel doesn't feel itself to be cornered and has no need to start arming its weapons and deciding where they're going to hit. It makes sense for us to help avoid such a situation arising, which is why we helped out last night. It's not that we love the Israelis particularly. This is simply a matter of realpolitik, that we don't want them to end up with their backs to the wall, because if they did, there's no telling what they might do. Masada shall not fall again is not an empty catchphrase. It's seared into the soul of that nation.